Good afternoon, people. Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome all. Hello, Nick. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Danny. Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
Super duper. With me now, of course, is Nick Pearson, Parkrun Global CEO, to have a little bit of a chat, about the milestone t-shirts. And before we get to it, thank you very much for giving us your time to talk about it, because I know you're having a very busy day. Everything's scaling up and escalating in terms of getting ready for Parkrun's return. Let's give a shout out to some of the comments that are in here. So people, I don't know if you know this, Nick, but people have learned when we do our scheduling of the post, they can go into YouTube and they can put their names up and they get little shout outs and comments. They say hello. So I'm going to give a shout out to the regular person who's always in first, Dave Salby Williams. His comments get deleted because he puts it in so early. I think they have a bit of time before they remove them. But hello, Dave Salby Williams, and everyone else is in there having a chat on our YouTube. So, oh, crikey. Let's have a quick look. So regarding questions and our conversation, good morning to everyone. I will try to address questions. And of course, as you know, it can be quite a scattering of things as we go along. And I'll try to bring them up in due course. But let's have a couple of pointers. Hello, Danny and Nick. One of the best parkrun changes in recent times, alongside the volunteer app, of course. Good afternoon. So I think, Nick, it's fair to say the general consensus on the milestone t-shirts has been resoundingly positive.
Yeah, I think, as we were saying just 5 minutes ago, Danny, it's a bit of a surprise to us. And actually, the news of the week is that it's been pretty non-controversial. So our expectation was there would be a significant amount of disappointment, maybe even some level of anger and frustration, and that the typical social chat rooms would be full of people arguing about it. But actually, the really positive thing, the really enjoyable thing about the last week has been that it's been celebrated largely. The broad, wide parkrun community sees it as a step towards long-term sustainability, which they've celebrated. And so yeah, there's a slightly different context to this chat than probably we expected when we scheduled it a week or so ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, I recognize that our audience is primarily advocates, big advocates of parkrun, and always understand and respect that there's a lot of decision that goes into, a lot of time that goes into the decision and the making of these particular things, these changes. And just reflected here with Lil Morris saying that I don't have any questions. I just want to say I think this is a fantastic decision, and Tony Liddell is absolutely the right thing to do. So it's not going to be controversial. It's quite relieving, isn't it, I guess, in a way, to come on and talk about this thing and not have to worry about any aggression or spats. I'm sure some people have some questions that might be a bit challenging. Now, I've got a couple of things I want to talk about. And so a question that I don't think has been answered, and there's a point that's been made, and this isn't controversial at all, it's just curious, is that with the way the counts are done, if you volunteer once on the Saturday and once on the Sunday, as we roll forwards and someone like Nikki Clark is on 600 something plus, that means she'll get to the 1,000 club before the runners and walkers and joggers do, all the wheelchair people. So do you know, is there going to be a revelation about the colour? And is there going to be 1,000 club t-shirt?
We haven't had a definitive conversation about this, Danny. So I'm sort of speaking outside of the parameters of a definitive decision. But we've loosely talked about it, and our intention was always for there to be 1,000. So yes, I expect there to be 1,000. I can't imagine any scenario where there wouldn't be 1,000. We definitely haven't had a conversation about the colour. So if I could, I wouldn't be able to give you a colour. I'm not sure I would at this point give you a colour. I think there's probably some fun to come in that conversation at some point in the future that I'd be spoiling if I gave you the colour now.
No, fair enough. No, I love the anticipation and the excitement of it all. I mean, I was just excited to find out the colour of the 500 t-shirt when it was decided back then. And so your favourite word is, I'm jokingly have to say, it's the egalitarianism of it all. So it's equating it. I think it's going to be quite nice that we're going to have a volunteer reach 1,000 mark before the runners. I think it's quite a reflective of the change, isn't it? The shift in terms of how the attitude toward volunteering has giving your time, not sacrificing something, that are trying to equalize it. I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think it's quite a nice thing to be looking forward to, isn't it, when that happens?
Yeah, and you and I, Danny, have had a conversation about a number of the different potential solutions to this over the last 18 months or so, and I think that the reality is, if we could have started all over again, go back to the beginning, and had the philosophy we had now at the beginning, we would have argued that participation at parkrun includes absolutely everything: running, walking, jogging, volunteering. Every single one of those should count as one credit towards some sort of recognition level. But by the time milestone t-shirts were ingrained, and by the time volunteering became as important to parkrun as it clearly is, it was impossible to do that, to reset that, and it was impossible for us from a financial point of view to be able to offer the level of equal milestones that there were for participation. And so part of this conversation for a long time has been: do we try and reset it in the first via the first mechanism? So put everything into one pot, and count it as one credit, and there be one milestone club, but it includes volunteering and participation. Or if we do it at the same time as bringing in charges and reducing our exposure and our risk and everything and the cost, could we level things up so you could get the same thing for volunteering that you can for participation all the way up? And ultimately, that's the decision we've come to, and I think that's right. I think it's going to be quite a joyful experience to be out there when those t-shirts get out and recycled, and see people wearing those t-shirts and being able to celebrate in the same way. So there is a tremendous amount, although there being us bringing a charge in has the potential to be a negative for some people in terms of the perspective. There is a lot of joy in that and a lot of positivity in that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are saying it's the right decision. Of course, like you say, some people are going to have a question mark hanging over the price point, but I'll reveal things now. I've written a monologue in the pod for tomorrow about my opinions regarding that. You can't please all the people all the time, but many people here are saying they love hearing from you.
I think that's right, Danny. And I think that one of the conversations I was having last time, and look, I haven't been across all of the comments. I dipped in, I took a little dive in and a little dive out probably on Thursday. And what I saw was a massive amount of positivity, very, very, very little criticism of the decision at all. We saw a number of people that could afford them, disappointed for the people that potentially couldn't afford them. But what we didn't see was people saying, I can't afford them, I'm really disappointed, or angry about this decision because I can't afford a t-shirt. And I think that we need to understand what the problems are, and whether we're in terms of the decisions that we make, and whether we've caused a problem and whether we're solving problems. And I think that actually in 2021, £15 for a decent quality running t-shirt with the brand that you love and are passionate about is within the reach of a significant amount of park runners, the vast majority. And I don't think it's the issue that a small amount of people are making it out to be.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, because I wrote my piece on it, and I wrote my piece and I thought, actually, after I speak to Nick, is he going to say something which completely changes my mind? And am I wrong here? I mean, it's all, my opinion is subjective anyway. It's just my opinion. And what you've just said then about it's not a massive issue. I talk about giving solutions. I mean, that £15 includes postage and packaging as well. Is that correct? So you're looking at it was £4.95 beforehand, so roughly a £10 t-shirt. And this is an item that people will, for me especially, I'd like to think will treasure, will be wearing repeatedly. And it's about cost and value. The value of this t-shirt is enormous. There are, for me, methods of then being able to find out, discover people. And okay, I'm spoiling things, but people have said the pay it forward system. I've got it down here. The pay it forward system. My mindset is that if you put money into a pot, and I'm sure there's some issues financially, etc., that someone takes money out of it, it's open to abuse, and there's a kitty and they take a top, then it's very anonymous. Now, parkrun, from my experience and yours, Nick, has always been about keeping things where people are involved and interacting together. And I've always said this, and I've said this publicly on my Twitter account, saying that find out, talk to people. If you discover people are struggling a little to pay for it, then buy it for them and give it as a gift, which is far more emotionally tying and important, I think, rather than just going, right, go online, means tested system, send me one. And I think some people wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I think there would be an element of, this doesn't mean as much to me.
I mean, not only that, Danny, like literally, I have absolutely no idea how you would implement a system like that for, knocking on for 1 million people that are currently qualified for some form of milestone. And all it would, I think, lead to, as do all means tested systems, is lots of arguments about people that operate either side of the fringes. I'm either one side of it or I'm either the other, and a perception of what's just and what's not just. And so, I mean, literally, I'm open to be educated, but I've seen those things, brilliant concepts work really successfully in single coffee stores where it's you're chalking on a board and you're putting money in a separate compartment in a till. Nowhere in the world have I seen it operating at that kind of scale with that amount of people. You're entirely right. There are, significant financial implications about taking other people's money and what you do with it and how you protect it and where you ring fence it. And what do you manage for a claims process? The reality for us is that actually the technical process of changing from the old system to the new system is, it adds a level of complexity we could do without. So that's a workload that the tech team will have to schedule in to a really busy period going forward, which is one of the reasons it's not until September, to take some pressure off the tech team to be able to make those changes and test those changes and do everything before we go live with it. Trying to manage, some uber complex system that totally undermines the keep it simple principle that makes parkrun successful, doesn't sort of work. And again, as you know, Danny, we'll always use discretion. We have people write to us all of the time and say, for example, a friend of mine, tragically passed away with a terrible disease, 3 away from their milestone. Is there any chance you could allow us access to a t-shirt because it would mean so much to the family, or something like that? And we use our discretion a lot in those circumstances. And of course, we're as sympathetic and sensitive as we can to every situation that gets put in front of us. I think trying to, again, invest a significant amount of time and energy and complexity into solving a problem that, from what we're seeing in terms of the reception to the announcement, isn't a issue for the audience that people think it is, would basically be a dereliction of our duties, I think. And as we've said all the way along, this is about us being able to ensure that those events that serve those communities are there. So if one of the places where this might impact is in the custodial estate, where as we've got a significant number of events. A number of those inmates and participants have earned volunteering t-shirts and participation milestones, and they are without question incredibly proud of earning those t-shirts and wearing those t-shirts. But the thing that's really changing their life is the physical activity, the structure of it, the goals to be set, the fact that it's there. And what we're saying about all sustainability decisions is it makes the ability to be able to do that more concrete, more certain that it continues. It means that more people will be able to benefit from the actual physical activity intervention, and we'll be able to do more of it. And it's not just about protecting the accessibility to the 2,500 global events that we've got at the moment. It's about where we go in the next 10 years and what that event profile looks like and how many people are going to get access to it. And these kind of decisions, when we're saying conservatively 2.5 million t-shirts we'll have to fund over the next 10 years, that's an awful lot of investment that we can put into the growth of parkrun around the world, and allow more communities in more countries, and more disadvantaged populations to get the benefit of parkrun as a result of this. So yeah, as we've said for a while, that's what our priority is, and that's why that the healthier and happier sits in there as a reminder of why we make these decisions. And interestingly, I've heard you talk about the health and happier, about it being, potentially it sounds a bit glib and overused, but there's a reason it's there, and there's a reason that we do, and because it does inform the wider population that, however the wider parkrun population, that however disappointed they might be about an individual decision, how much that individual decision impacts them, there is a bigger picture in the whole conversation, and supporting that, understanding that you're part of something big and immense in terms of what it's intending and trying to do, and that you're part of that, I think is a critical part of escalating that within our messaging as much as we can, and helps us remember what's important in this decision-making process.
No, I agree, and I've also probably said that the fact is that if t-shirts weren't there, people would still end up going to parkrun regardless. If you had to actually say that we're going to stop it, then people would still end up going to parkrun. There's going to be very few people who go, I'm not going to end up going back because they haven't got t-shirts anymore. They're not going for t-shirts, they're going for the thing we've lost in the UK and other countries for the past year, which is that interaction on a Saturday morning in the park spaces that we can't have anymore. So absolutely, I agree. When I do say about the healthy and happier and the mantra, I know, yes, you're right. You're good to call me out on the glib thing, but it's absolutely, it's like the whole, I respect the reasoning why you do it. It does still sound a little bit like a mantra.
I'm not calling you out about it.
Sorry.
But as always, just the right to reply, Danny.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm very much big on right to reply in terms of when things are attributed to you and then end up saying, "Hang on, that's not what I said." I'm very familiar with that of recent times. So Tony Reeves says, "I really like the way that the parkrun leadership have been prepared to come out and discuss issues and decisions on live webcasts. What other global organisations have done the same?" Yeah, there's not very much, and I wanted to give a shout out to Free Weekly Time. There's a lot of things that you go, and I listen to it as well, where you go into the details and the decision making. So if you're watching this now, guys, you haven't listened, please go and listen to Nick, where he talks again once in detail as to everything, like the stages and steps and reasoning behind this big move. And it's very hard to sort of question a decision from my point of view when I agree with it. And as you said at the beginning, I know that you've been thinking about this and discussing. You spoke to me quite openly about everything behind the scenes, and I knew it was coming. So when it got announced, I wasn't like, oh my goodness, how dare you? I think, yeah, absolutely. As I know that you guys have nothing but best interest, especially your role as CEO, Nick, to make sure that parkrun is protected in the future. So you're not making these decisions, again, glibly, because you want to try and profiteer from it. You're doing it to make sure that financially it's sustainable in the future. And I'm hoping people can see that. And I think most people do. So yeah, it's an interesting one. There's another comment here, Gemma Marie Bennett. You'll always get positivity from me. £15 is real value for money, in my opinion. We get parkrun for free week in, week out, something that has to give somewhere. And internationally, of course. So it's the same amount internationally. So if in South Africa, when they were paying the equivalent for the post and packaging, they were doing it anyway. So I think that's amazing. How have you managed to do that?
So there is a bit. So in terms of the pay forward scheme, there is to some degree an element of that within the system, because there was an injustice in the old system that the t-shirts were housed and distributed from the UK, and if you lived in the UK, you got a lower rate of postage than if you lived in Europe, where the fees are now higher as a result of the changes in January the 1st. But obviously, when you begin to go to the other side of the world, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, North America, Canada, etc., they were significantly more. So another element, we didn't think that was particularly fair. And so what we've just looked at is in terms of what the total charges are and how we condense that into a single charge, which we think, and there are lots of variables that go into the calculation, but we think makes it a cost neutral venture. But essentially, part of what you're paying for in the t-shirt is for more expensive countries to have that shipped available to them, rather than having to pay. I've seen some people paying £32 to ship a t-shirt to New Zealand on certain circumstances. So that's now been leveled out as well, and you're not at a disadvantage if you're 12,000 miles away either.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely. Lots of comments as it's always going to be the case. We can't address every single one, and many points made. James Bishop, when do you think that the replacement t-shirts option can be brought online? This is such a positive step for us long timers whose 50 Ts have seen better days. Thanks, Nick and Danny. You're both great. Well, thank you very much, James. It's much appreciated. Now, I'm a big fan of the fact that I can get a replacement for my 500 crop top. So yeah, thank you for doing that. Yeah.
We wanted to do it at the same time, and we're hopeful that we can do it pretty soon afterwards. So the number of variables that we have to measure into the conversation is fundamentally we've added this new club, the 25 Club, and that there's a massive amount of people, hundreds of thousands of people that sit within that group. Now, on day one, we're not going to have hundreds of thousands of t-shirts. Now, we've got absolutely no idea how interested, for example, Danny, are you in a 25 t-shirt? You've got a 500 and you've got a 250 and you've got 100 and you've got 50. Do you really want to go back? So we have to make a calculation on how many people we think are going to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a group of people, it's their first t-shirt. We've got to make a calculation on what people who have never had a t-shirt, what their rate of redemption will be. And also, of course, all of a sudden a charge comes in. How does that impact on the rates of redemption? So we're slightly nervous that as we sit on day one, we'll have something like 100,000 t-shirts in stock, but we could burn through quite quickly some little pockets of those t-shirts and run out quite quickly. So I think the announcement last week said we anticipate that there will be shortages. Once we start to see the redemptions and we can start to calculate based on this percentage of people claim these t-shirts and this percentage, our forecasting will be much more accurate. So we're comfortable going forward, but we anticipate there'll be some issues early on. Now, what we wanted to avoid was the scenario that we have had before and where we've been short of t-shirts, where you've been waiting for ages, and if you're not one of the first people to go back for their t-shirts, when they become available in the first week, they sell out again. So you don't necessarily read the blog post. You rely on something else. Somebody tells you t-shirts are available. You've been waiting for 3 years, and somebody that's just qualified gets a t-shirt, and it becomes quite it becomes quite divisive in terms of that's not fair, that's not fair, that's not fair. So what we didn't think, as we anticipate shortages, was fair on the people that were rebuying, was for them to get the blame potentially for having used up some of the stock, while people that had never had a t-shirt before. So we just want to understand the demand part of the process first, and then as soon as we've got that covered, then we'll open up the other bit. That's a long-winded way of saying probably by the end of the year. I'd be disappointed if we haven't opened that up by the end of the year.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you've kind of answered this question as well, in terms of the fact that stock levels are going to be quite difficult enough as it is to supply at first. Then Mary Meany has said, I don't mind, but I think there should be a t-shirt for 150 and 200, because from 100 to 250 is a lot of park runs.
What do you think of that, Danny, as somebody who's got his 250?
Yeah, but it's not. I've said this in the past as well. So I appreciate it's all relative. It is. I mean, we've said this, that as someone who's been around for a long time, I'm more comfortable with changes going forward. I've seen changes. And as you know, Nick, one of your missions when you first joined was about keeping the fundamental basics of turning up in the park safe. So that experience at the beginning is you turn up, you have a run with friends, and you scan, get your result, and so on, and go home again. You are protecting that with all the challenges that it comes. And so, of course, little things like results pages change, yeah, it's fine. I expect this has to happen. So when people come in and they say, well, actually, what about this? How about having these different stages? I recognize I come in from a different point of view. So people go, it's a long time to wait. Now, I've been through that long wait. So I have gone from 250 to 500. That was 5 years of me waiting. So when people say I've had to wait from 100 to 150, that's a year. Now, to me, I've been through a 5-year plus wait to get to the next milestone. So I don't empathize in that point of in that sense, in that point of view. But at the same point, I will also say, and not in agreement, but I'll say that anticipation, that wait to get to that 500 over that 5 years has such a massive impact that if I had that diluted along the way by steps of 50, it wouldn't mean as much. And I know it's the old arbitrary thing, but I really genuinely believe that. So when it comes to the 1,000, that's going to be 10 years plus of waiting. It's going to have such a punch and an impact on it. I wouldn't want it to be diluted. So that's my point of view on it.
Look, I think that's mine as well, Danny. I think the reason people are so proud of them and they mean so much is that they're difficult to get, and you know, as I talked about last week on the other podcast, you know, that the first one of 100, it felt, and I know I wasn't there, but it felt like it was just this most amazing. It was a single act of incredible. You know, every week for 2 years, it would never be repeated again. And I think, you know, the point about us wanting them to be something that means something to people is the journey isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be quite difficult. And then you get this incredible sense of achievement at the end. Really interesting. Darren, when he came in, so his 750th was just before
lockdown.
Just before lockdown.
16 weeks before,
Yeah, and he was very much of the view that he didn't want a 750. He, in his mind, he wants to be the first person to 1,000, and he's really excited about that achievement, and he wouldn't want it diluted either by there being a 750. And yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to that, apart from all I can say is that's our point of view, and there's no intention on our side to be changing that and adding more in. I think what we've addressed is that the fact that you can't get a milestone T-shirt within a year under the current situation outside of a volunteer T-shirt, but now you can. And I think, you know, for the way the sector has changed, putting that level of achievement, you know, a smaller step in first is appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. I just when talk about Darren, of course, being there. We used to joke in the early stages that we were going to tie him to the bushy tree at the start, and then you'd have to watch everybody run and end up having to miss out on the getting that extra count. Because even back then, we knew that he was doing this, and the way that he was doing it and being in those numbers and being the first to do that, again, it was like even back then it was so unusual, but celebrated and very different. And again, looking forward and winding forward now to thinking, could we imagine him doing this? We could kind of imagine, but it's nice to actually go through that particular step and stage. But it was, I mean, that's the thing, is also getting to these points. It brings back lots of these occasions when Darren comes forward and gets presented with the fleet. Again, it's having that impact. If it just happened matter of factly regularly, it wouldn't have so much. Hopefully my internet has not gone funny. If my internet's gone a bit potatoey, I do apologize. I'm just getting the alert up that it's gone a bit potatoey, but I think it's back. Then there was this comment here. This is the thing what happens. They were saying about we've got to be careful that we're not in an echo chamber of agreement. Who said that? And you're right. I just like to point out, thank goodness we're not AFTV. Now, an Arsenal fan, as an Arsenal fan, I'm watching AFTV. It's quite nice to be in an echo chamber sometimes regarding parkrun than it would be to be in a bit of a toxic atmosphere. But we respect that. I'm completely aware that we are very much the case of people.
But I think to your point earlier, Danny, is we've not. I don't think we've shied away from putting ourselves up towards any degree of scrutiny or questioning with regard to any decision over this, and so. You know, you mentioned earlier on, I think somebody said, you know, it had been good the way we've come up and offered to explain our decisions. The pods, both yours and
3 weekly times.
Free Weekly Time. That's the name of it. Both yours. I've done an amazing job over the last 12 months, and look, I've listened to both of them. The endless enthusiasm, the positivity, the optimism, the connectivity, all of that's happening has been an incredible thing. So from us at Parkrun, our thanks go out to you and Nicola and to Vassos and to Helen. I think you've done an amazing job. But of course, we've not said we're only going to use those kind of really friendly environments to present our point of view. And as you know, as we announced the return in September last year, we opened up a number of, much more hostile in actual fact, question and answer sessions via YouTube and various different channels for a broader community to come in and understand what the framework said and what the framework did. And I think we have taken a view over this last 12 months, and it's not specific to the last 12 months. I think we were pretty open and transparent before that, but particularly where these decisions are more contentious during COVID, to offer up as clear an explanation as we can as to why we're making them. Accept that not everybody's going to agree with us, but definitely if we give more information and we share in an open and transparent way, then we've got a better chance of people understanding why we're doing stuff, even if they don't agree with it. And this is just part of that. As we said, we felt that this would get quite a lot of negativity, and we felt I would need to be out in whatever forums necessary to explain and justify the decision. Now, as it turns out, it's been a much more popular decision than we expected.
Okay, I just brought you up because I thought you'd talk a bit more, and then you didn't, so I bring you back out again. I have to get used to this directing thing that's going on while reading on the comments. Yeah, because I spoke to Russ when Russ gave us a heads up, and thank you to Russ for giving us a heads up. He said, I'm just going to walk out and just come back and let it all go on and wait for the dust to settle. And I'm really happy that it was a majoritively positive thing.
Well, there's a bit of a standing joke that I only put myself up for announcements that are positive, and Tom,
there was the difficult ones.
Yeah, Tom gets all the difficult ones. And
Yeah.
So there was a bit of chat in the office that I might pass this one over to Russ and go hiding and wait until there was something positive to announce.
Yeah, you've not had to skirt this one, which is fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you do it better than I do. You are much more pragmatic when it comes to having that balance about there being criticism. You don't take it enormously personally. From what my impression is, it doesn't get under your skin anywhere near as much as it would do I. And I have to congratulate you for it. It's that I couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do what you do in that sense. Carrie Ann DeSalvo says, yes, my friend has just completed couch to 5K and lost over 5 stone. She's excited about heading to Parkrun when it gets back. I'll be gifting her a 25 t-shirt when she gets there. Claire Splan says, happy with the changes. I'm on 272 volunteers to look forward to ordering a V250. Personally, I won't bother ordering the volunteer milestones that I've already passed. So the thing is, I will, because I'm a completionist. It's only because I will, which actually will lead me to another question very shortly. I would like to have these teas. With regards to runs, I agree with Danny. I'm on 356, 2 years down, another 3 to go until 500, and more than happy for it to take that long. It'll be worth the wait. Now, what I've noted here, and then this will probably be the last point, if anybody wants to bring up any other points in the comments before we go, I don't want to keep Nick too long, is the trees not teas. Now, I had a Twitter like from Trees Not Teas. And I'm assuming you might be aware of this organization. I don't know loads about them. So, of course, there's this mindset at the moment that race T-shirts that are to a penny at the moment, aren't they? You go do a race, spend your money, you get your race tees, you wear them, you get another one the following year, and then you have to look to pass it on and repurpose it. That they're looking to try and get people to invest it in different fashions. Now, what are your thoughts regarding people saying, well, what's all this additional material?
What additional material?
Well, in terms of the t-shirts being purchased, that's the thing. I mean, I know I'm of the opinion that these t-shirts these are not throwaway items. These are ones that you purchase and look after, or I certainly will do, and I will wear and treasure and keep them archived. But as you say, that there's potentially 500,000 people becoming eligible, 2.5 million t-shirts down the line. Somebody will say, is it sensible to produce that amount of material? Is it necessary? It's a bit of a tricky question, I know.
Yeah, but and I'll be honest, I have seen the I wouldn't say it was a campaign. I've seen the outreach from that organisation to us for some kind of engagement. I've got a multitude of views on it, Danny. I'm glad you brought up the really contentious topics that I'd rather not make public comment on. But while I'm here, I will. So look,
this is what I was meant to do. This is what this pod was meant to do. Remember, you said you wanted to get challenged. I'm sorry if I made.
Well, I think there's a number of things. I think firstly, we have at our current rate 20 million run instances a year. Probably rising to, within that 10-year period, well over 100 million run instances a year. So we're talking, probably over 10 years, 500 million to 1 billion run instances. People have to wear running t-shirts when they go running. I don't see the conversation. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think we're selling a running t-shirt that people want to be able to run in, and if they didn't have one from us, they'd have one from somewhere else that would.
Well, it wouldn't be treasured. It simply wouldn't be treasured. There is no running kit outside of my marathon tops or races of significance that have the significance of the parkrun milestones.
Yeah, exactly right. So look, I don't really understand the point. And as you point out, it is a totally different conversation. I think it's the announcement made it topical, and it made it easy for somebody to connect two organisations together and say, is there something you can do to together there? But I don't think it's particularly well researched from them. I think as you said, we're a totally different organisation to a race provider giving away free finisher t-shirts, which are largely cotton and rubbish sitting in a bag. Whether you want them or not, you've got them, and largely you just throw them away. So
He's gone. Oh no, has he gone? Is it me? Come back, Nick. Let's have a look on the. I've got my YouTubes. Is it going? Is he still there? Has he disappeared, or is it me? Uh-oh. It's my end, isn't it? Freeze frame. Is it Nick? He's gone. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, guys. Well, we'll give him a second to come back if he does come back. Shepperton Potato Internet says Claire. Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. We're aiming to be around 45 minutes. I have to get kicked out because Bev's got an important meeting very shortly. So we're only going to go for 45 minutes anyway. If Nick does come back, if we remember what he was saying just toward the end, we can carry on. Oh, there we go. He's completely lost him. If he does come back, I'll bring him in. But thank you for being with us. I'll tell you another thing being gone pose. But thank you for joining us. Hopefully that's answered a few of your points. There's certainly, I'm looking in the comments, like the Callum and everyone. I have read your comments, Callum, about suggestions, stickers, and everything else on top. I think that the importance here is about trying to make sure that parkrun works this system first rather than having additional items. Here he is, he's back. Right, what were you saying, Nick? Claire Crook says Shepperton Potato Internet.
I'm not in Shepperton. I'm in the Twickenham office, and
Twickenham Potato.
Proper business broadband isn't supposed to crash like that, is it?
No, we have dodgy internet and sometimes. Thank you, BT. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, what was you saying? I'll tell you one more thing. Where did we get to? What were you in the middle?
I was saying I can see the argument for. Yeah. I can see that argument. So I think we're very different to that as an organisation, and if you look at our environmental footprint, full stop, we've got hundreds of thousands of people running every single week, doing and the environmental impact of that is incredibly positive, and the impacts that has on their lives and the decisions and the responsible decisions they make. We've got almost non-existent infrastructure and wastage as a result of what we do on a global scale at a top line. If there was to be some sort of league table in terms of output, impact, and environmental consequence, we would sit either towards the bottom or the top, whichever way you were measuring it around. But so I think it's not a particularly well-researched introduction, and not understanding what we do, just thinking we're giving away millions of free t-shirts. And point two, I think, is that the request to us is that rather than take a t-shirt, we take that money and we invest in planting a tree. Well, That unfortunately opens us up to every legitimate good cause that's out there. So rather than raise a t-shirt, I don't want to plant a tree, but I want to donate it towards, you know, children's charities or a homeless shelter, or those introductions become very, very difficult for us to say, well, no, we can't do that because this is what we do, but you already do it because you do it over there. And then it becomes really complicated. And so, you know, my position there is if you want to invest your £15 instead of on a t-shirt into something that offers more social impact and charitable value, then I commend you and encourage you to do it. It's just not really for us to provide the platform for people to make that choice.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm afraid you've let some people down because the fact you're in the Twickenham office means there's no Apollo. So that's not gone down.
Or Athena. Let's not forget Athena.
Yes, of course, both. Of course, yeah, absolutely. And actually, also, you're forgetting one other. Apollo, Athena, and let's not forget.
She's the cat that got the cream. She's constantly waiting around the fridge for cream. Yeah,
exactly. David, you mustn't forget the cat side. Mustn't leave them out. So the people want to appreciate what you've been saying. Thank you very much indeed. People's opinions on the nature and so on, the natural world, experiencing a parkrun. Teams go and tidy up their park spaces after a mess of a Saturday night, don't they?
Unbelievable positive impact. I think we just don't understand actually the impact, the amount of money they're donating to supporting parks and all of the different things they're doing, the volunteering element, you know, getting people into outdoor spaces gets them to appreciate it, and then they make active actions to do something about looking after it.
Yep, protecting the wildlife, the green spaces, and of course making healthier choices as a whole. Absolutely, it all has a knock-on effect. Dan Roberts says, I think the environmental impact of people driving to distant park runs and even flying is a far bigger issue. Let's not go down that road. Because of course you could argue the nuance of that left, right and centre. And that's it really. There's basically other comments, but I don't want to keep you up much longer. I recognise you're a busy chap. So I want to say once again, thank you very much indeed for coming on and talking to us. I'm sorry that I caught you a little bit with that trees not teas question.
No, it's fine, Danny. I'm totally fine with it. I'm joking.
Super duper brilliant. Right, all the very best. Thank you guys, take care, and see you some down the line. There's no more plans for any other big announcements that might catch us short, is there, Nick? Any heads up on that? No,
I don't think so before the 6th. No, before we come back.
Super. All right, take care, all the best everyone. Ta-ra.